Hello, this is Carson Cook, your CSO Pro, and welcome to the channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you won't miss any of our future uploads. Enjoy the video. Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are out there. Again, my name is Carson Cook, and welcome back to the CSO Pro. And today we're going to be talking about an extremely important topic, guys, which should be part of the steps of the sale. Or if you're a sales engineer and you're developing sales strategies for you, yourself, your team, this is a very important step not to leave out. And it should be something that would be recognized, guys, as it's a step of the sale on its own, okay? And this step usually happens after the introduction phase, okay? So when you're actually making an introduction either with a new client or a client that you know you have a meeting with, that introduction, the next step, guys, in this process should be stating the agenda, okay? Stating the agenda. Now, we're going to talk about 3 reasons why this step is super important, and it should not be left out, okay? And way too often, guys, we work with a lot of experienced sales teams, and we see very experienced sales guys and also young sales professionals leave this out, and it's just it's a no-brainer, guys, in sales that you should have this step in your arsenal. Whether you're an outside sales or inside sales, you need to do this. I mean, this is a very simple thing to do. You got to do it, and I'll explain why. Okay, it just makes sense. Okay, so in stating the agenda, we're going to talk about 3 different things. The first one is going to be laying the communication roadmap. Okay, so laying the communication roadmap. When you state the agenda. The second thing we're going to talk about is avoiding errors in communication with this step. Okay, so avoiding errors in communication. The next one we're going to talk about is what we call the narrative sales hook, or the narrative sales statement. Okay, and why these 3 things are important when you state the agenda or you're in this step. Now, what does that mean, Carson? What is stating the agenda? Well, essentially, guys, you're trained on the steps of the sale. Okay, and whatever company you work with or whatever company you decide that you're going to go work for and bring in a sales process, you need to sales engineer a sales strategy, right? And when you do this, okay, you need to have a certain thing of steps, okay, called the steps of the sale. And this step of stating the agenda should be right after that introduction. And what it should do essentially, okay, is communicate that process to your clientele, to your clients. You're basically reading off the steps of the sale. Now, a good example of this, guys, is we had a sales representative. This was also another video of mine. We had a sales representative at one point that he just would not learn the steps of the sale, okay? And he had trouble closing deals. He had trouble dealing with clients, and we worked on all sorts of other things like rapport and this and that. But the first thing that you need is your foundation, your steps of the sale. You got to know what your process is. So we actually physically made him. We said, here are the steps of the sale. You're going to go into this client right now. You're going to hold it out in front of you like this. And you're going to read the steps of the sale to the customer. Okay, you're going to show it to them. And you're just going to go line by line and check it off like a checklist. Okay, they ended up walking out with a deal. It's very simple, okay, because of the fact that it's a process. The customer was very comfortable. They knew that process. Okay, so in the first part of stating the agenda, essentially that's what you do. You lay the communication roadmap. You lay the roadmap. Now let me give you a good example. Okay, have you ever had a teacher, okay, in grade school, elementary school, or even college that walked in, looked at the class, and started teaching? Maybe. I mean, possibly. That's not a very good teacher. Why? Because there's no assumed communication, which means that, guys, the teacher knows the agenda. They did their lesson plan for the rest of the class. But what they failed to do is they failed to display the lesson plan to the class before they got started. Okay, so stating the agenda is great. A great teacher is going to be someone that's going to come in before a college class and give out a syllabus. They're going to give out a roadmap. This is what we're going to do in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4 over the course of the year, or whatever, semester, or whatever we're going to do, right? Okay, so the class now knows what's going to happen during that class, but then every day they do the same thing. They walk in and they say, okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, students. Okay, this is what we're going to be doing today. They write it up on the board. First, we're going to do this. Your homework will be this. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. Okay, does it sound fair, everybody? So pull out your books. Okay, so now the class knows what the hell is going to happen during the class. They go, oh, okay, so today we're doing that. Now the audience, your class, and everybody else, if you state the agenda, is more engaged. There are a lot less errors in communication because they prescribe that. So when you work with your client, you need to be the good teacher. You need to do the same thing. When you walk into a presentation, you're going to give a great introduction and you're going to move right into stating the agenda. Same thing with a board level meeting. Where if you go into an ill-prepared meeting, someone that doesn't have an agenda for that meeting, you realize that 2.5 hours later, Okay, nothing has gotten done. There's been no bullet points made because no one had an agenda. Everybody trailed off into this direction and that direction. It was just a waste of time. Sometimes board meetings can be a big waste of freaking time because of the fact that there's no agenda, there's no set plan. You need to be the one to give your merchant, your client, your prospect, your board of directors a plan of attack. This is what's going to happen during our communication process today, okay? So you state the agenda, okay? Now, that's the best example I can give is a bad board meeting or a very good teacher. You need to be a really good teacher. So when you walk in and you meet your client, for the first time, you give the introduction and then you state the agenda. You basically read off the steps of the sale. I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do this, and after this, and this, and this, and this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. How's that sound? Make sure that sounds good to me. Now they have an idea. You avoid errors in communication, which is number 2. Every time you do this, you want to make sure that you're avoiding errors in communication. Now, what do I say by when I mean avoiding errors in communication? A lot of experienced sales professionals, as well as young sales professionals, take advantage of communication by assuming, okay, that their customer knows what they're thinking. They assume that the customer already knows the steps of the sale. They already assume that the customer just knows that. I'm just not going to repeat that. They don't question, they don't ask questions. And it's a huge flaw because you have that steps of the sale that you were trained on. You have a foundational process and experiences that you were trained on to sell this product, to sell any product, to sell things. Your customer doesn't have that knowledge. So don't assume that they do. Avoid errors in communication by stating the agenda, being very concise, very clear, know your shit, know your game, okay? Explain stuff to the client on what's gonna happen, and you're gonna work together on this process, and don't leave anything out. Don't assume that they know what's gonna happen, okay? Even if they're an expert, you still have to put it on the table. So avoid any errors in communication when you do this. And then the very last thing, after you state the agenda, just like a teacher states what we're gonna do today, they always say, well then at the end of the day, once we're completed with all this and all the work in the class, your homework will be this, blah, 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 okay? That is what we call the narrative hook. And in sales, we call it the narrative sales hook or the narrative sales statement. Now, a narrative hook is that little piece of information at the very end of your paragraph to get the reader to keep reading. It's like the headline in the newspaper. 15 people die in car accident. I mean, obviously, that's probably not the most important part of the article, but it's going to get someone to read it and move on. You need to have a narrative sales hook or a narrative sales statement once you state the agenda. Okay, and what that usually is, guys, can be a green light, question, or a statement. And usually what that happens is the best way to do this is to state the agenda. So today group, today customer, today client, first I'm going to do this, then we're going to discuss this, then we're going to meet with this department. After we do that, we'll circle back around, depending on how long that takes. After that, we'll come to a conclusion, then we'll present what our company has to offer. And when it fits within your system and it works out really, really well, narrative sales hook right here, then what we're going to do is we're going to present it. And if you guys are happy and we're happy, we'll go ahead, we'll ask for your business, and we'll get you set up. Does that sound fair? Sounds fair. Okay, don't leave out the narrative sales hook because now you're going to get the preliminary objections or the prelude objections, the first objections a customer might have right off the bat. They might say, oh, okay, well, what's that time process going to look like? I don't have time to do that today. That's okay. We'll go through and get as much done as we can today. Don't really worry about the time frame. We want to make sure the product fits. We want to make sure that this department's happy, you're happy, and we can get this all done and wrapped up the right way. Okay, so just don't worry about that. I just need you to understand the process so that we can go through, we won't leave anything out, and I can do my best job of presenting this program to you and making sure that it's going to fit you and your business. Okay, so think about that. Always end with a narrative sales hook or a narrative sales statement. Okay, and that basically just roadmapped the whole process. Same thing when you present to a board of directors or multiple decision makers. You want to make sure that the multiple decision makers, whether you present to them in the same group or outside of that group, privately, differently, that they know the agenda. And the key is to know that, hey, your partner that I spoke with yesterday, they also went through this process. They understand what I'm doing with you today. Okay, so I'm avoiding errors in communication. I'm not just going to assume that this customer, this other decision maker, okay, assume that they know that I did this with their partner. Okay, that kills communication. So unless I explain the agenda to this partner, let them know that I did the same exact thing with this partner, I was very detailed. Now this partner or this client can't say, okay, great, you've done the whole process, I got the presentation, now I still need to talk to this partner because I'm not so sure you took them through this process, so I have to double check everything. That's another problem. That's going to kill your timeline. Get deals in your pipeline and get them out. So what you need to do is do the whole thing with everybody, avoid all errors in communication and kill it. So lay the ground rules, lay the roadmap, the sales roadmap, and make sure, guys, you do not skip out on this very important step. Thanks a lot for tuning in to the CSO Pro, guys, and make sure you state the agenda. All right, rock and roll.